Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. They targeted the helpless. Earth's fleet arrived without mercy. The sky over Junetter shimmered with an eerie calm, a quiet that didn't belong. Old traders said, "The silence before the storm always had a taste, bitter like metal on your tongue." And today the whole colony of Surya 4 felt it. They came in the night, not the kind of night that Earth used to know, but the eternal dusk that hung over this small terraformed world. The Trian Dominion's warships broke through the atmosphere like knives, silver and soulless, with no warning and no negotiation, just fire. Children didn't scream, they never got the chance. Homes burst open like crushed cans and lights blinked out one by one. The Trians weren't interested in resources, they didn't need water or crops. They came for dominance, they came because they could. Earth's colonists, most of them farmers, medics, and teachers, had no weapons. The colony was declared neutral under the Galactic Accord. It was supposed to be safe, a place for families and hope. But that hope evaporated in a matter of minutes. Jules Marine held his daughter's hand as they ran through a burning field of soy leaf stalks. She was 7, small and fragile, asking questions he didn't know how to answer. "Daddy, where's Mommy?" Jules didn't have the heart to tell her, not yet, maybe never. He just ran faster, gripping her tighter, whispering, "Keep going, baby, keep going." They weren't soldiers, none of them were, but the massacre didn't care. A Trian soldier, 8 feet of armored cruelty, drove a spear of light through a fleeing teenager just 10 paces ahead. Jules saw the kid's body crumple, the glow still burning through his chest. He almost threw up, but his daughter kept him moving. By dawn, Saraya was silent again, not the peaceful kind, but the kind where death hangs in the air like smoke. What the Trians didn't know or didn't care about was that every colony had a beacon, a distress signal. When Jules finally made it to the underground relay station and shoved his bloodied hand on the console, Earth heard it. The signal reached Luna Command within 13 minutes. Admiral Reyna Salas hadn't slept in 36 hours, but she didn't need rest. She needed orders. When she saw the footage of children burnt alive, elders executed on their knees, outposts reduced to ash, she didn't ask the council for permission. She simply said, "Mobilize the 7th Fleet. We burn them." Across Earth's orbit, the silence ended as massive dreadnoughts began powering up, old warships from the solar conflicts, retrofitted for speed and vengeance. Carriers swarmed with exormored infantry units. Drones calibrated coordinates with target. Trian Dominion forward fleet and secondary target, every stronghold they dared to build. Earth had been quiet for decades, peaceful even, but Earth never forgot how to fight. And when its children were slaughtered, Earth didn't send diplomats, it sent war. Jules sat in the ruins, holding his daughter against his chest. She didn't cry, she couldn't, the trauma had shut her down. His eyes stared up at the hazy sky where the enemy had vanished. He didn't know if help was coming, but it was, and it wasn't bringing mercy. In the hangar bay of the UES Hellstorm, controlled chaos reigned. Massive engines roared in the background as the final dropships were loaded with exo-suits, weapons, and enough firepower to punch a hole through a moon. The 7th Fleet didn't just prepare for war, they embodied it. Captain Arlen Drax tightened the last magnetic seal on his gauntlet and stepped forward, his boots clicking sharply against the deck. He wasn't a man of ceremony, and yet when he stood at the head of the drop unit, every soldier fell silent. "Listen up," he said, his voice hard and low. "This ain't a clean op. We're not rescuing hostages. We're not playing by any treaties. They targeted civilians, kids, and families. They wiped out a farming colony with no defenses, no survivors as far as we know." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle on them. "We want to make a point. We're going to make one back 10 times louder." He scanned the faces in front of him, men, women, non-binary individuals, even a few synthetics. Some were shaking, others just looked cold and ready. "Our orders are simple. Drop in, hit their forward outposts. We don't just defeat them, we erase them. We send one message across every system in this quadrant. You don't touch Earth, you don't touch ours." The roar that followed could have cracked metal. Arland turned and strode toward his dropship, followed by the elite Hellhammer unit, fully geared in black-on-black, exo armor bristling with weapons that weren't even supposed to exist under current galactic laws. They didn't care. Halfway through their descent toward Trian-controlled space, the lights inside the ship dimmed, brief turbulence shook the cabin. "Brace!" barked the pilot. A few nervous rookies flinched, but Arland barely moved. He'd been through this dance too many times, but this wasn't just another war zone, this wasn't political, it was personal. The fleet's target was a Triand outpost on the fringe of Zoral 5, a volcanic moon used for ore processing and military operations. It wasn't heavily populated, but intelligence showed signs of the same ships identified at Saria 4. If those bastards were down there, Earth's first message would be delivered straight to their throats. The moment the doors split open, the scent of sulfur hit them like a wave. Along with the distant rumble of tectonic movement underfoot, Zoral 5 was alive. The lava rivers pulsed through cracked canyons. Steam hissed from fissures in the ground. And in the middle of it all, the Triand compound's high, black towers stretched like thorns out of the rock, guarded by plasma cannons and sentinel drones. None of it mattered. Arland raised his hand. Go! The unit moved as a single organism, exo-suits charging forward, rail guns locked, drones deployed. The first explosion landed at the southern gate, sending chunks of alien metal flying in every direction as screams followed, panicked, high-pitched, unprepared. The Travans hadn't expected them this fast. It didn't matter, Earth didn't give warning anymore. The first Trian warrior Arland encountered came at him with a serrated energy blade. Taller and bulkier than any human, the captain didn't flinch. He dodged low, twisted, and drove a compressed core knife into the alien's ribs. The armor cracked with a hiss, and thick black blood spilled as the creature collapsed, gurgling. "You picked the wrong species to mess with," he muttered. Explosions echoed through the compound as the Hellhammer unit was relentless, clearing room by room, showing no mercy. Arland saw a few Trians attempt surrender, arms raised, weapons dropped. They were ignored. Saria 4 burned in every soldier's memory, the images, the bodies, the children. This wasn't a war anymore, this was a reckoning. By the time the sun dipped below Zeral's crust and the last cannon silenced the Triand compound, it had become a crater. Arland stood on the edge, visor lifted, staring down into the smoke. "Captain Drax, this is Admiral Sawless," came over the comm. "Zoral 5 confirmed you are greenlit for Phase 2. He replied without hesitation. "Understood. Phase 2 commencing, we're not done." Because Earth had only just started answering. On the crystalline world of Vexor Prime, deep within the Trian Dominion's core systems, the High Command sat in silence. The walls of the War Council chamber shimmered with cold light, every surface reflecting the unease that hung heavy in the air. Lord Commander Xerx, head of the Dominion's military arm, watched the live feed loop over and over. The destruction of Zoral 5's outpost, the complete annihilation of their personnel, and the bodies of Triand warriors strewn across volcanic stone like discarded metal scraps. "They came like animals," he hissed, his voice low and trembling with something foreign to most Trians' fear. "No diplomacy, no warning, just carnage." Across the table, Minister Dravara, cloaked in shimmering red, responded in a tone that mixed contempt and disbelief. "What did we expect, Xerx? We butchered a colony full of their civilians' children. They are behaving as they always have, brutally, emotionally, and effectively." Another voice chimed in from the far end, low, calm, and unsettling. All eyes turned to the shadowed corner where the Overseer of Intelligence stood unmoving. "We underestimated them," she said. "As always, Earth has spent 2 generations pretending to be soft and peaceful, but they never lost their taste for war. They've just been waiting for a reason, and we gave it to them." Xerx growled as a map of the quadrant hovered in the center of the chamber. Red Trian-controlled zones blinked in sharp contrast to the growing blue flickers of Earth's fleet movements. The 7th Fleet had split after Zoral 5, taking separate vectors into Trian territory, striking supply lines, fuel depots, and communications towers with mechanical precision. "They don't leave survivors. They're not seeking territory," the Overseer continued. "They're not even establishing command centers. This isn't conquest, it's retribution. Every move they make is meant to humiliate us." A long silence followed. For a species like the Trians, who saw themselves as the apex of galactic civilization, this was unthinkable. They had crushed empires, enslaved entire races, subjugated systems without blinking, and now their pride was bleeding under the boots of angry humans from a blue planet they once considered backward and irrelevant. Xerx slammed his fist against the table. "We need to hit back hard, show them who the Dominion is." "No," the Overseer said coolly. That's exactly what they want, escalation. Right now, the Council of Worlds watches us. If we strike Earth directly, we lose our political cover. Our best option is to stall, to offer terms, apologies, anything to buy time. Zerk scoffed. You want us to beg, I want us to survive. But it was already too late. Far from Vexor Prime, in a hidden relay station orbiting a dying star, Earth's cyber warfare unit had intercepted a high-level Trion transmission detailing refugee transports leaving military hubs, civilian ships marked as vulnerable targets. Admiral Reyna Sawless stood silently as the decoded message played before her, her jaw tight and her eyes cold. "Did they spare our children?" she asked softly. No one answered. "Did they offer apologies when Saria 4 burned?" "No, ma'am," came the reply from her exo. "They made an example of us." "Good," she said. "Then we'll return the lesson, triple it." Orders were sent. The 5th and 9th battalions were redirected. Civilian hubs were no longer safe if those stations supported the Dominion's war machine. They were now targets across the galaxy. Systems once distant from Earth's influence now watched with unease. On neutral planets, news feeds couldn't stop showing footage. Triand fleets decimated, fortress worlds in flames, and most chilling of all, the human soldiers. They didn't chant, didn't celebrate. They just killed, efficient, silent, unforgiving. And something deeper began to ripple through the stars, fear, yes, but also admiration. The weak races, the ones the Trions had ruled through terror, began to whisper Earth's name with a different tone. Maybe, just maybe, this was the species that could finally break the Dominion's hold. Jules Marine, still hiding among the ruins of Surya 4 with his daughter, received the first encoded message a few days later. It was short and blunt. "The 7th Fleet has struck. Zoral 5 is no more. We're coming for the rest." He stared at the message for a long time, then, for the first time since that horrible night, he let himself smile. Inside the political chambers of New Geneva, Earth's capital on Luna Prime, the mood was anything but united. Holographic projections buzzed around the council floor, footage of burning outposts, devastated space stations, and reports of rising civilian casualties within Trion territory. The 7th Fleet wasn't slowing down. If anything, it had become more brutal with each victory. Earth's soldiers weren't just fighting, they were erasing. Senator Lyra Voss stood at the center of the storm, her voice sharp as it echoed through the rotunda. "We are becoming the very thing we swore to resist. This isn't war, it's annihilation." Across from me, Defense Secretary Morgan Hale leaned forward, cold-eyed and unapologetic. "We didn't start this, Senator, they did. They butchered our children. This isn't about diplomacy anymore, it's about never letting that happen again." "You're killing civilians," Lyra shot back. "You're bombing refugee arcs. The Council of Worlds is watching. We're being labeled a rogue species." Morgan didn't flinch. "Good, let them watch. Let them see what happens when you touch Earth." The chamber soon descended into a shouting match, half calling for restraint, half demanding escalation. Outside the political storm, the reality was clearer. Earth's people, the ordinary ones, the workers, builders, and healers, were angry. They remembered loss, and most didn't care who got burned, as long as someone paid for it. On the ground, that same fury simmered beneath every soldier's armor. Captain Arlen Drax crouched behind the smoldering wreck of a Triand hover tank, blood drying across his visor. The air was thick with smoke and the stench of scorched metal. A sharp pain pulsed in his side, shrapnel from the breach of Varkos 3, the Dominion's primary munitions depot. It didn't matter, they'd taken it. His squad was down to half strength, but the depot was nothing more than rubble now. "Medic," he growled into the comm. Corporal Santi slid beside him, already pulling out a cauterizer. "Sir, you need a vac," Santi said. "We hold position," Arland grunted. "We wait for the 9th, but they're not due yet." One of the rookies interrupted. "We finish this, no half measures." As Santi treated his wound, a faint noise buzzed through the calm, a child's voice. Is anyone there?" Arland froze. The voice repeated, "We're in the tunnels. My mom is hurt, please." Santi looked at him uncertainly. "We thought they evacuated this place," she whispered. "They didn't, or they lied," Arland muttered. Activating his helmet mic, he demanded, "Identify yourself. Who are you?" "I'm Surreal. My mom worked the machines. They shot her. She's bleeding." The voice was young, too young for this. For a long second, Arland didn't speak. The rage that had driven him for weeks twisted in his gut. Suddenly, the orders that had been clear, no survivors, no mercy, lost their cold conviction. "I'm sending help," he said finally, quiet and bitter. Santi blinked. "Sir, we're not the Trians yet." Arland muttered, "Not yet." He tapped his comm and added, "Pull a field team, bring them out alive." And just like that, a ripple started, small and quiet but significant, because behind the armor and beneath the fury, there were still choices. Back on Saria 4, Jules Marine knelt in the shattered temple where his wife had died. He placed a small memory stone beneath the altar, tears streaking his ashen face. His daughter sat beside him, silent. Then a low hum filled the air. A massive ship, Earth's Grace, a mobile hospital vessel, descended into the colony's remains, its insignia glowing blue in the fading light. They were finally coming home, not just to avenge, but maybe to rebuild. Far across the stars, the Triand High Council convened in a subterranean chamber buried beneath the core fortress of Vexor Prime. Far from the floating glass towers that the public believed held power, the real decisions, those drenched in blood and desperation, were always made in the dark. Lord Commander Zerk stood at the center, trembling, not from fear, but from rage. They spared civilians. "They're sending in relief ships now, hospital vessels, they're rebuilding our ruins," he spat, slamming his clawed hand against the obsidian console. Minister Dravera, pale and gaunt, said nothing for a moment. Then, with a slow blink, she replied, "And yet every one of our garrisons in Sector 12 has fallen. Our minds are silent, our fleets are scattered. Call their mercy what you want, Commander, but don't mistake it for weakness. The galaxy is watching us. Bow to humans." "Zerks," growled the overseer from the shadowed corner. This was supposed to be a lesson for the lesser species. And now they chant Earth's name in back alleys like it's a goddamn salvation. The overseer continued, "The humans didn't come to take land, they came to break us, and slowly they are." She pulled up a hollow map revealing red blinking alerts across key sectors, entire outposts marked as lost, not just taken but obliterated. Even their own soldiers were starting to defect or desert, questioning orders. Word of Earth's retaliation had begun to spread among Dominion civilians, and for the first time in centuries, fear turned inward. "There's a rumor," she said coldly, "that Earth has developed something, a weapon, a planet cracker, a final strike." Zerk scoffed, "Propaganda." "No," she replied. "Hope. They're letting the galaxy believe they're capable of extinction-level response, and they're not denying it. That's more powerful than any real weapon." Meanwhile, Earth's fleets were tightening their noose. Admiral Sawless stood before a row of hollow terminals as reports flooded in. Another Triand and garrison surrendered without a fight. Several Dominion-occupied moons now raised neutral flags. The dominoes were falling fast, but she didn't look pleased. Behind her stood Ambassador Cade Miles, Earth's liaison to the Council of Worlds, and one of the last voices calling for diplomacy. "This has gone too far," he said quietly. "Solace, we've destabilized half the quadrant. Millions are fleeing, there are whispers of galactic sanctions." She finally looked at him, eyes cold as steel. "Let them whisper. You're not just fighting Trians anymore, you're rewriting Earth's identity from survivor to conqueror." Solace stepped closer, low and deliberate. "Maybe it's time the galaxy feared us a little." Back in the field, Captain Arlen Drax sat in silence beside the young Triand girl, Surreal. She sat cross-legged, arms wrapped around herself, watching as medics tended to her mother. Her skin shimmered faintly under the field light, the scaled texture of her species catching the glow in strange patterns. "You're not like the others," she said quietly. "I'm not sure that's a good thing," Arland replied. He hadn't been sleeping. Every face he saw in the smoke, every building he torched, made him wonder if he'd be spared if the sides were flipped. Probably not. "You look sad when you win," she observed. "That hit harder than any wound." Arland rose slowly. "War isn't about winning, it's about surviving what comes after." He didn't know why he'd saved her, maybe guilt, maybe something more dangerous, remorse. But what scared him most was that part of him hadn't wanted to. He'd once wanted to follow orders to burn through every living thing in a Dominion uniform, child or not. Now he could feel himself changing, and he wasn't sure if it was for better or worse. Meanwhile, back on Surya 4, Jules Marine helped a team of engineers lift debris from what used to be a water purification center. He moved like a man with purpose now, not just grief. More ships landed every day as Earth rebuilt the colony. This time there were automated defense systems, satellite shields, and armed guards. Never again, he vowed. Nearby, his daughter stood, holding a small Earth flag that she waved at the newcomers, a tiny sign of resilience. Jules watched her, his chest tight with both pride and dread. They were alive, they were surviving, but at what cost? The fires of war crept closer to Vexor Prime. For all its fortified walls and deep planetary shields, the Trian capital now pulsed with fear. Every day brought new updates. Earth's fleet drawing nearer, systems going dark, allies defecting or fleeing. Even the inner sanctums whispered of collapse. In the hidden corridors beneath the great citadel, Lord Commander Xerx met with a figure most of the Dominion pretended didn't exist. Coral of the Shadow Accord, an exile and traitor once stripped of rank, now summoned in desperation. "You said you had a solution," Xerx said, his voice heavy with shame. Coral smirked, his body shrouded in sleek black armor that didn't belong to any Trian military division. "I said I had a weapon." He raised a small device, its core glowing with a pulsing violet light. "The last whisper," he said. "A Banyarodister designed to wipe a planet clean, no cities burned, no structures harmed, just the minds gone in a day." Xerx's nostrils flared. "You use this on Earth." "No," Coral answered. "I'd use it on Luna Prime, their capital, take their voice away, make them too broken to speak." Xerx hesitated, even he could feel how wrong it was. But the Dominion was bleeding. They were losing not just a war, but face, dignity, power, everything they'd built for millennia. "We deploy it only if Earth enters our orbit," he said finally, his voice dry. "Only then," Coral smiled. "Then prepare to press the button." Meanwhile, Admiral Sawless stood aboard the command bridge of the UES Wrecker Earth, Earth's newest dreadnought, a beast of war never meant to leave drydock, but now spearheading the assault group aimed directly at Vexor Prime. Sawless stared at the star map, one system away. "That's all that's left," she noted. One jump still, but no response from the Dominion. "I'm receiving only static and scattered surrender transmissions from surrounding systems," replied her calm officer. She nodded once tight. "Send the final notice. Vexor has 24 hours to surrender, and if they do," Sawless's jaw clenched, "we finish what they started." Not everyone on board agreed. Captain Arlen Drax, now promoted for field valor, paced the viewing deck of the Wrecker. Troubled, he remembered that Surreal and her mother had been relocated to a neutral world under Earth's protection thanks to him, but it hadn't brought peace. He kept thinking of that girl's voice in the tunnels. In all the assaults he'd led, losing too many friends, burning down outposts without flinching, now so close to the end, he wondered, what would it change? Vexor Prime and ashes wouldn't bring Saraya back. They couldn't unburn the children. Was this justice or vengeance dressing up as duty? That night he stood outside Admiral Sawless's office and requested entry. "Captain," she said, surprised, "you're not on this deck's rotation. I need to speak about the final assault." She motioned him in, her expression unreadable. "I think we need to give them a way out," he said. Sawless frowned. "We've given them enough. If we destroy them now, we win, but we lose everything else. The Council of Worlds will shut us out. The galaxy will fear us, not respect us. This doesn't end with Vexor Prime. It ends with what we become after." "You're suggesting mercy?" Sawless asked, her tone heavy with judgment. "I'm suggesting strategy," he replied. "We beat them, but let them surrender. Let their pride die while their people live. We don't have to turn Earth into the thing they always claimed we were." She leaned back, thinking it over. Every advisor had warned her. Even Morgan Hale, the coldest man on her staff, had said privately, "The last step is the one history remembers most." Outside the ship, the stars stretched in perfect silence. In the shadows of Vexor Prime, Coral prepared the last whisper for deployment inside the Wrecker Earth, ready for its final offensive. In the middle of it all, a decision hovered, one that could define the fate of two civilizations, mercy or annihilation, and the clock was ticking. The final 24 hours bled away like smoke from a dying fire. Admiral Sawless stood in full uniform before the Wrecker's War Council, generals, fleet commanders, data analysts, and every high-ranking officer present. A large holographic timer hovered above the center table, counting down. 327, it read, ticking away. No reply from Vexor Prime, no surrender. I haven't slept in 2 days. We proceed on schedule, Sawless announced. Her voice remained still, but the silence that followed said everything. Even the war-hardened looked tired, hollow. Captain Drax stood at the far end of the chamber, arms crossed and unreadable. He had said his piece. He hadn't shot her down, but he hadn't agreed either. We launched the first wave of disruptor pulses at 300 Galactic time, Sawless continued. Target the outer defense rings. Once down, we move to primary atmospheric strikes, no boots on the ground, surgical, swift, final. As the officers began to disperse, she looked at Drax. Walk with me. They stepped into the observation corridor overlooking the vast, dark stretch of stars. Vexor Prime glittered faintly in the distance, a cold, distant orb soon to become history. You still believe they'll surrender? She asked him quietly. I believe they're waiting to die with pride, because we haven't offered them another ending. Sawless didn't answer for a moment. Then she asked, almost softly, what if we're wrong, Arland? What if mercy gives them the breath they need to rebuild, to come back twice as cruel in a decade? Then we deal with them again. But we don't become monsters today. He replied, today we show the galaxy that even after everything, we still know where the line is. Just then, a sharp beep echoed in the corridor. The comm unit flickered. Admiral, a technician said, we've got an incoming signal on Dominion Channel, encrypted. Sawless whipped around. Source. Vexor Prime, but it's not military. The signal. The feed cracked open to a blurred, low-resolution image. A Trian female dressed in civilian garb appeared on screen. Her eyes were wide and her voice shaky. To Earth Command, this is Minister Varala. I was once part of the Civilian Council. I beg you to listen. They're going to kill us. Not you. They're going to kill us. Sawless tensed. Clarify, they've activated a contingency fail-safe. It's called the Last Whisper, the minister replied. A device that doesn't destroy buildings but erases consciousness, mind waves, every living thought. They'll unleash it on your fleets or their own people. Before surrender, they think it's better to vanish than to bow. Sawless's blood ran cold. Coordinates. The minister hesitated. The southern pole of the planet below their old prison complex, that's where it's housed. Then the transmission cut out suddenly, the signal severed. Drax stepped forward. She's telling the truth. Sawless stared out at the stars, the weight of it all crashing into her. A suicide device, a full-scale mind kill. They wouldn't just die, they'd take everyone with them. Sawless turned sharply. Prep a ground team, I'm going in. Drax blinked. This is bigger than war. If this is real, we stop it ourselves. I need someone who's been inside their heads. That's you, Captain. Without hesitation, he added, gear me up. As preparations began, Sawless gave the order, hold the strike, new objective, neutralize the whisper. And just like that, Earth's most destructive fleet turned from annihilation to infiltration. Hours later, a single black stealth pod breached Vexor Prime's outer atmosphere, slipping beneath the surface like a shadow. Inside, Sawless, Drax, and a 5-person unit prepared to descend into the most dangerous place in the galaxy. They landed in the ruins of what once was a prison, the kind used for political enemies, war resistors, and dissidents. The air stank of old blood and something worse. Fear soaked into the walls. Drax took point, rifle drawn, tracking heat signatures. We're not alone, he murmured. They moved fast and silent through winding tunnels until they reached a circular chamber humming with violet light. In its center sat the device, the Last Whisper. Standing before it was Carol. I wondered if you'd come yourselves, he said with a cold smile. How poetic. Listen, you're outnumbered, Sawless warned. No, Carol replied, his finger hovering over a biopad. I already won the moment you chose to care. Drax raised his rifle. Don't, he ordered. Why not? Asked Coral from behind. You wipe us out, you're monsters. You spare us, you're fools. I win either way. Then the unexpected happened. A sharp crack echoed through the chamber as a plasma bolt slammed into Coral's shoulder from behind the shooter. Minister Varala's voice came through once more. No more monsters, she said. Coral collapsed, twitching. His hand never reached the pad as the whisper powered down. Quiet fell over the chamber. Sawless looked at Varala. Why? Because we want to live, Varala said, even if it means surrender. And with that, the war truly changed. It didn't end with fireworks. There was no grand ceremony, no triumphant anthem played across the stars. It ended in a whisper, not the kind Carol intended, but the kind that follows a storm so loud it leaves everyone stunned in the silence. The whisper device was dismantled, sealed in a containment field, and shipped to Earth under full security escort. Admiral Sawless personally escorted it back. She said nothing the entire way. By the time they reached Luna Prime, the news had already spread. Vexor Prime had fallen not by fire or orbital bombardment, but by surrender. Earth had offered a second chance. The galaxy didn't know what to do with that. For generations, Earth had been seen as a former backwater, smart, dangerous, but always restrained. No longer. Now their name echoed in hushed tones, not just as a warning, but as a question: what is Earth becoming? Back in New Geneva, the council chamber stood in total silence as Admiral Sawless addressed them for the final time. In her uniform, she said, "We had a choice, death or humility. We chose to live. We let them live." Senator Voss spoke slowly. "Some are calling it weakness, that we should have finished them off." Sawless didn't flinch. "Let them talk. The galaxy saw something no empire has dared to show in centuries, mercy with power that terrifies them." And she was right. In the weeks that followed, smaller empires began reaching out to Earth with guarded diplomacy, not because they wanted friendship, but because they now knew Earth could destroy them and chose not to. Power, they realized, wasn't just about pulling the trigger. It was about being the one holding the gun steady and silent while everyone else shook. The Trian Dominion officially signed the Treaty of Surya, named for the colony that had started it all. The treaty stripped them of half their controlled systems, disbanded their slave fleets, and put every warlord under an intergalactic tribunal. Yet they were alive. Their cities remained standing, their children still played in the streets, and they would remember that Earth, the species they once called lesser, had spared them when they would never have done the same. Arlen Drax returned to Earth a different man. He visited Surya 4, now under slow reconstruction. The fields were green again, with new crops sprouting from soil soaked in tragedy. There he found Jules Marine, older, tired, but with eyes that had found some form of peace. "I heard what you did," Jules said, handing him a flask. "Saving that girl standing down." "I don't know if it was the right choice," Arlen admitted softly. Jules just smiled. It was human, that's enough. Nearby, Jules's daughter played in the dirt, a little older now. She looked up, noticed Arlen, and waved for the first time.